Hi, this is Spooky. She was a stray that came around the house and has become a house pet. Wildlife is a very serious problem in rural and can be in urban. Wildlife in the rural area is becoming more prevalent as housing developments take over the habitat of wildlife. In almost 100 years of farming, we never had moose come up to the barn, and last summer there was 2 moose came up to the barn. We've had deer eating the crops, we have wild turkeys, and of course your groundhogs, raccoons, coyotes and wolves. I've worked for several years out in rural as a frontline patrol officer. Wildlife is legislated to be destroyed by the police under the Police Services Act. The Police Service Act authorizes a police officer to put down a dangerous or injured animal. This business of trying to tranquilize wild animals that have become disoriented in town is very dangerous. First of all, a tranquilizer gun is not very accurate. Second of all, you have to hit in the muscle tissue, and for example, moose that come out in the spring are usually very thin from the winter. They don't have much muscle mass, and to try and hit them in the hip or the neck to get muscle, a muscle hit is very, very hard, especially if they're scared. That moose that was hit in Orleans, you could see that the tranquilizer hit the rumen. The rumen is the gut of the moose and would do nothing but torment the animal, cause it to be injured, and now we have a real problem. In my opinion, based on my experience, moose will often come out 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. They'll look around. Any hooved animal, deer, cattle, sheep, horses, moose, they do not like walking or running on a road. So it's not a concern that they're going to be running down the road for any great length of distance, but they often will come out and check out the area. Young moose will come out in the spring and they'll taste different leaves, different trees, and most of the time the police can move them back before the traffic picks up in the urban areas. If you give them enough space and enough time and you get them turned around, they usually will be okay and we can put them back. If they become disorientated, if they become scared, or if they become nervous, they will often thrash about. If they get hit by a car and they're wounded, they break a leg, they will run off scared, and it is then the responsibility of the police department to put them down. I've had to put down a number of animals. We don't like doing it, but it's the responsibility of the police service to look after that type of thing. The Ministry of the Natural Resources can issue tags to keep down the population of the deer and moose and that type of thing, but as far as controlling wildlife that move up into the urban areas and become a threat, it should be the responsibility of the police department. You can't ask Ministry of Natural Resources in Kempville to come down. By the time they fight traffic and that type of thing, it's often 2 hours, 3 hours before they get on site. To hire a civilian on a commission basis to deal with a tranquilizer type situation, to me is ridiculous. What happens if he lives in Munster and the moose comes out in Orleans? Injured animals and that type of thing should be dealt with by the police because they are on the job all the time, 24/7. They have the equipment to deal with it. They have the experience and they have the knowledge to deal with it. And if it's a community's wish to train them with tranquilizer type guns, that's fine. But at the end of the day, there has to be a police squad out of rural that is specifically trained and has the expertise to deal with wildlife. That's where the buck stops. They have the legislative authority, If they need a little bit of funding, I'll ensure that that is done, and they'll be able to look after the issue from that end.